Hey everybody, Alex Kazor, SteelersDepot.com, back to do another Steelers training camp position battle breakdown slash preview. Last time we talked about the offensive line. Today we will talk about the Steelers quarterback situation, and hopefully not the starter, but the third string battle between Devlin, Duck Hodges, and Paxton Lynch. And again, I think this is a close battle. You can make cases and arguments for both guys, and much like the right tackle battle that we talked about last time, just going to come down to really who plays better in the preseason, the summer months, however much action they get, which we don't know how that's going to go right now. But to break down the battle, starting with Duck Hodges, I think context is important to remember. I know it's easy to forget after the season. You're just so hyper focused on the games. But this is a guy that, this time a year ago was a rookie tryout guy that had just made the roster through that 3-day rookie mini camp and really had no expectations. And he took camp by storm. And I watched him every day, camp every throw he made in practice, and he was legitimately good. He was so much better than your typical number four quarterback. And I think the reason why was the mentality. A lot of these quarterbacks come in and they're just playing scared. They don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to have a terrible miscue mentally that could basically end their NFL career, get them cut, or just get the coaches to write them off. So a lot of them play scared, just want to check it down, take a profit, and don't take advantage of that opportunity. And for that type of quarterback, I get it. It's a tough situation to be in. The odds are slim, but you're never gonna get coaches to notice you by going super conservative and just trying to play it safe. And Duck had that opposite mentality because he literally had nothing to lose because he was undrafted, unsigned out of the draft from Samford, coming in a rookie tryout, $1,000 signing bonus, and he played like a guy that just had nothing to lose. He was aggressive downfield. He took shots. He showed his arm. He doesn't have a great arm, but he showed that aggressive mentality, and he was just excellent. He was consistent. To his completion percentage was around, I think, 68 or 70% last season. It was a really high number. So he was efficient with the football too, in training camp at least, and that did partially carry over to preseason. The regular season, of course, it was a stretch there where he played very well before everything fell apart at the end of the season. And what happened to Hodges was, that gunslinger, go for broke mentality eventually catches up to him, as it often does for any quarterback. Even Brett Favre threw a ton of picks, but his talent was, of course, so good that the pros outweighed the negatives. But for Doc, eventually, when he did try to press the football downfield, he got himself in a lot of trouble. Pocket presence was a big issue for both guys, talking Mason Rudolph and Duck. I think Duck in college, when you're playing, against some lower, what are they, CS competition, you can scramble, you can move the pocket, make more plays on the run, and that can work at that level. But in the NFL, it's not going to work. There were too many times where he bailed on clean pockets, or instead of stepping up and hitching up and climbing into the pocket, he would try to roll out, and then the tackle has no chance to make the block. The end's now got the angle to you, and you're in a really tough spot. You're throwing on the run, half field, and that can lead itself to a lot of mistakes, which it often did. So eventually, just kind of that string of aggressive go for broke throws caught up to him. But there was talent there. I mean, I think about one of the first throws he made against Baltimore coming in for relief of Mason Rudolph. It was a third down. He changes the protection. He forgets to call the protection. He eventually gets it right, and then throws a dart on the sideline on an out route to Deontay Johnson to move the sticks. So there is talent there, legitimately. And again, in context of his situation, his newness, the roller coaster ride that he and the whole quarterback room was on, the injuries at other positions like Juju and Connor, and you guys know the names. Not to excuse Hodges of everything, because there were certainly a lot of mistakes that were on him, but knowing he was a young guy getting thrown into the fire, and let's just see how he responds in year two now that things have slowed down for him. I mean, camp will be so much different this year, and he looked good in camp last year because he's been in regular season games. He's played in stadiums, he's played in loud crowds. I mean, camp's going to be, nothing to him. So I think you'll see a lot of improvement, and you better see a lot of improvement from Duck in year two for him. So just being a little bit more calculated with the risks, I would say, and having better pocket presence, navigating within the pocket instead of trying to bail at the first sign of pressure is going to be the big thing for Duck Hodges. Then you have Paxton Lynch, who got signed mid-season with all the injuries at the quarterback position, was eventually elevated to 53, never ended up making an appearance with Pittsburgh. But, he's the classic pedigree guy. Kevin Colbert loves to take former first-round picks, whether those are free agents or trade situations. Even think about someone like Justin Gilbert, former high pick that they're willing to take a flyer on. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But Paxton, a former first-round pick of the Broncos, Denver gave up on him pretty quickly. I think he lasted about 2 seasons there with John Elway before they cut ties. And I'll try to find the quote here and I'll edit it in if I'm able to. But I remember Colbert talking about how good, I think it was Colbert or Tomlin talking about how good he looked at practice last year, and that's not a shock because he had the arm talent and the pedigree and kind of the makeup of this tall, strong arm kind of guy that's going to look good in the practice setting where there isn't a rush. You're not worried about getting hit or sacked, and there's a little bit less pressure. So I believe that when Tomlin or Colbert, whoever did say that, said it about Paxton. I think that that can carry over into training camp where he can look good in that kind of setting. Will it translate to a preseason game and, of course, ultimately a regular season game, which hopefully we don't see either Duck or Paxton in the regular season. But that's going to be the question. But I think in an environment where you're battling for your job in a camp setting, he's probably going to look good because he's got a big arm and he can make some wild plays. And that was kind of the feel that reports and coaches were talking about last year. So it's hard to, of course, evaluate Paxton because we haven't seen much from Lynch. I mean, we have his Denver days, but that's so far removed from where he's at now, and we don't know what strides he may have made. But it'll be very interesting to see because the Steelers do have a certain value of pedigree. I think he will have a good camp, and will that translate to preseason is probably going to be the big question for him. So I don't have anything super specific other than the obvious quarterback stuff of, like I said with Duck, playing smart but still playing aggressive, finding that balance, being efficient, not making the terrible mental mistake and correcting mistakes whenever they do happen. You don't want to repeat mistakes. That's the big thing that Tomlin always talks about when he's just coaching up and discussing young players that are trying to still find their way in the NFL. So who's going to win this battle? I think right now if you made me choose, I would go with a slight edge to Paxton to start because I think Lynch again. I think he's just going to impress with that overall pedigree and the arm that he has, and the reason why he was a first round pick. I mean, there are certainly baseline traits there that made him a first round pick that I'm sure still exist. But again, I think it will just come down to probably how Lynch does in the preseason because I think we'll have a good camp and practices, but can he translate to that to game action inside of a stadium again? Assuming there are preseason games, which we don't know how that's going to go right now. And if he does well there, my guess is he'll beat out Doug Hodges, but I don't want to discount Hodges either because there were certainly stretches last year where he played well. I think he'll be able to correct those mistakes, be a different guy in year two, and just be a more consistent guy, at least when it comes to playing inside stadiums. So let me know your thoughts on the battle between Hodges and Lynch. Again, Mason Rudolph is going to be your number two. It's a big year for Mason Rudolph. I don't want to discount that, but I don't know if he's battling for a spot. He's kind of battling for how the team views his future as if he's someone with staying power and at least a backup role or potentially still the heir to Ben. My confidence in that scenario playing out is probably lower than what the Steelers have right now, but it is a big year for Mason. There's no question about that. I can do a separate video on that. But in terms of battling for a roster spot or a particular position on the depth chart, talking about the number three spot between Devlin Hodges and Paxton Lynch. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.